Welcome back to Everyday Game Changers, where we say thank you to folks that are making a difference in their community. I'm your host, Annalise Getz, and today we are joined by Rolonda Watts. She saw a problem with literacy in America and decided to become a part of the solution. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
We were talking earlier about the problem with illiteracy for adults, but it really starts with kids. And it starts with making sure that children have the opportunity at a younger age to learn the fundamentals, to learn the cornerstones of reading and writing and getting all those pieces to put together. Because what can happen, as you know, is if you miss those first couple years, you start to just skate through the system and then you graduate or there's a dropout and you're left and you become the statistic that we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
I used to live in Chicago, and when you're talking about kids that are worried about where they're going to sleep that night, when they're worried about safety, when they're hungry, the fundamentals of reading and writing just don't even come into play. And so I think a lot of people can be frustrated and think the problem is too big. I don't know what to do to change it. And what I like about you and why I applaud you is that you don't get frustrated and you dive in and you are trying to make a difference. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with kids, because I know you have some interesting ideas that you're kicking around to try and hit that demographic.
Well, I think that with kids, the main thing is because one of the things that we find is that most of the young people in prison, in the system, can't read. There is a marked connection with reading and kids behind bars. So that tells us a tremendous amount. What I also think is in not just teaching children how to read, but teach them the joy of reading. I think that's what is important in terms of just getting kids to accept it. It's just not, oh, I got to read this book, but boy, look at the story. I guess of all the things that I do, whether it's writing or comedy or whatever, it's storytelling. And storytelling is a thing that connects humanity. It's something that builds cultures. It's what talk shows are all about. But storytelling is the fundamental thing of our lives and creates a connection. And books do that. Books do that.
And we talked a little bit about you being a tutor, but I know that you have a program that you're considering putting on air right now, Reading with Ro.
Yeah.
Is it too early to talk about that?
It's a little early to talk about it, but you know something?
Let's talk about the idea of what made you want to reach out.
Well, Anne-Marie Nieves, my publicist, we just did a whole book tour with my novel, Destiny Lingers, last year. And she was just like, you know, just like what you're noticing. I get excited when I talk about reading and being an author now and going into a stage in my life where I want to do more one-on-one teaching, just not through the television tube, but one-on-one. Reading with Ro is something we've been kicking around. It falls right into the whole platform of the literacy project to get people excited about reading. And plus, I have so many friends around now that I'm in the author world that have wonderful books. And I love talking about books, and why not have a gab fest about something as delicious as a good book and pass that around. So I think I'd like to get more into the author world, and that also helps promote the platform of making America aware that we have a real literacy problem in this illiteracy problem, but we have a literacy program, and many of them in many communities that can help people if they need to learn to read. 1 out of 5 of us can't do it, and 1 out of 5 women can't do it. And if a mother can't read, chances are the entire family can't read. So,
and that's what I think about. I think about the impact generationally.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that one got stuck in there.
Right.
But when your parents can't read and you're trying to learn and you need to be able to work at home. When you have successful kids, it's because they're going home and they're doing their homework and their parents value that piece of the education. And parents that can't read, while they could really, really, really value education, that child is missing an important piece of the process and of being a success in student and therefore potentially perpetuating that problem.
Right. And kids mimic their parents. You know, I remember coming home and my parents were always reading the newspaper or they were reading a book. And to see mom reading, then you kind of put that in your brain. Oh, I should read too. So I think that a reading household helps perpetuate children too. Maybe it's a time you have quiet time, you have time out. Why not have reading time? for goodness sakes. It's the most important thing. And I also think you walk a different way when you can read. You walk a different way when you have an education, and you have a different sense of purpose in your life when you can pick up a book and read it, and maybe even change your own mind about some things.
We talked a little bit about that sometimes people hide it. And I know that on your talk show, you had a pretty influential guest come, and they talked about how one of their own siblings had hid it. Can you talk about that?
You know, the thing about talking about literacy on television, it's not a sexy topic, so it's hard to sell.
But it's important.
But it's important, but it's not sexy. So at that time, Bill Cosby was huge, and Bill Cosby said, "I will come on and talk about literacy." And he said, "I tell you why. My brother couldn't read until he was 54 years old." And I was like, "What?" And he wanted to apologize to his brother. You might have seen on Fat Albert, he was always calling his brother stupid. I think it was Russell, his brother, stupid. And he wanted to apologize to his brother because he didn't realize that he was dyslexic and couldn't read. He didn't learn to read until he was 54. So there are people all over. There are people around you that probably can't read and would never let you know. So it's been able to recognize the signs and letting somebody know that they're not alone in a quest to change their lives, really, for the better. And as you said, and the generations to come.
Well, thank you so much, Rolonda, for everything that you're doing. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.